Hei ngā kāhika o te Nehenehenui, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Nau mai, haere mai ki te whare o te reo irangi o Maniapoto. Welcome to another webinar series of Te Puna Kōrero o te Nehenehenui for 2022. Great to have your company this Thursday evening. Well, earlier this week, we saw the starting of the vaccination program for our tamariki aged 5 to 11. And just over 500 locations across New Zealand have so far administered almost 40,000 paediatric doses of Pfizer. And tonight's session, we discuss just that, the protection of our tamariki from COVID-19. And we are very pleased to have with us two experts in their respective fields. We are honoured to welcome back Denise Tahuri from the Immunisation Advisory Centre and a wonderful and caring mum, tēnā koe. And also Kylie Bryan from the Waikato DHB, also a caring and wonderful mum. Tēnā kōrua. Thank you both for giving us your time this evening. Now, just very quickly for you at home, you can, of course, ask our guest panellists any questions that you may have. Just post your question in the comments section and we'll get our panellists to answer as many of those questions as we can this evening. So if we can begin, and I guess if we can begin with you, Denise, could you just very quickly remind us what is your mahi at the Immunisation Advisory Centre?
Kia ora whānau. I know that I've been on here a couple of times, but for those whānau who are new, kia ora ko Denise Tahuri ahau. My role at the Immunisation Advisory Centre is I'm the Māori Engagement Advisor for the Immunisation Advisory Centre, so I work across our whānau who are wanting to become vaccinators and work alongside a lot of different scientists, and a big part of my role is to navigate whānau to either information or people that they trust to be able to send out to have information for them.
Ka pai, and certainly that information is going to be very relevant for us this evening. If we can now come to you, Kylie, and for those who are meeting you for the first time this evening, welcome. Can you share what is it that you do at the Waikato DHB?
Kia ora, tēnā rā tātou te whānau, ko Kylie ahau, e reo ngō Ngāti Maniapoto, of course. So within the Waikato DHB, I work in a rōpū called Marangai Ariare, and our team is part of the public health unit within the Waikato DHB, responding to the COVID vaccine or the COVID outbreak currently within our Waikato team. So our team predominantly is from Waikato. Our whakapapo lies with between Taumarunui through to Te Puaho Waikato up to the Hauraki as well, and out to the Raukawa iwi. And we do case investigation, contact tracing, and support whānau who are isolating within their whare at home. Kia ora.
Ka pai, tēnā koe, Kai. Thank you for coming on board this evening. This evening is certainly, again, a very important kaupapa talking about vaccination and our tamariki age between 5 and 11. And if we come back to you, Denise, just in terms of information, and I guess one of the biggest questions that a lot of our whānau have at the moment is what is Pfizer, and in particular, the paediatric dose of Pfizer. So I guess just jumping straight in there, can you just kind of break that down for our whānau that have that question on their minds at the moment?
Kia ora whānau. So the Pfizer vaccine, as we have discussed in previous webinars, is a commodity. It's called commodity, the actual chemical compound on it. But what's pretty much in the vaccine is there's salt, there's sugar, there's the spike protein, and there's the fat and the lipid to kind of keep it all together. That same ingredient is in the children's vaccine. So those same 4 ingredients are still in this Pfizer vaccine for our tamariki. The difference is that it's diluted differently. So the nursing team and the vaccinator team dilute it differently. It doesn't make it any more or less effective. It's just so that it's safer to administer to our tamariki.
Tēnā koe. Now, Denise, in the local newspaper, the King Country Chronicle, Dr. Amy Kempthorne spoke about the vaccine and the vaccine ingredients, and the vaccine science in general doesn't suggest that there could be any long-term consequences to Pfizer, to the vaccination. So I guess that's just supporting just how effective and safe Pfizer is for our tamariki.
It sure does. It sure does bring up the point that it's so safe for our tamariki. It's in international studies it has really good reputation for being a really safe vaccine for our tamariki, and also the Pfizer vaccine itself is like the top of the vaccines that can be delivered to our whānau. And yeah, definitely tautoko that I guess some of the concerns that are out there that our whānau may have is myocarditis, which is one of the effects, but the ratio of that effect is pretty much one in a very long number, especially for our tamariki. So it would be equivalent to if you went out and bought a lotto ticket, whānau, you're not going to buy a lotto ticket and become a millionaire just by buying a lotto ticket. Okay, so your chances of winning the $1 million is the same chance that you would have of getting myocarditis. And that's kind of one of the kaupapa that we look at, and that could be a side effect for our tamariki, but very rare, very rare.
And just talking about side effects, if I can come to you, Kylie, just within the Waikato DHB population, have you had or have you seen any incidents of adverse reactions within tamariki since the program started on Monday?
Not to my knowledge. So we haven't had any serious side effects being reported to us to date, to my knowledge, that is. But quite a lot of the smaller side effects whānau will have may not report them because they might just deal with them at home. For example, some whānau might have a bit of a mamai arm, as we know with vaccines. Some whānau might have a little bit of a headache, just like with our adults have had some of those, and a lot of those aren't reported. So we've had no serious adverse reactions like myocarditis to date, like pericarditis, things like that. No rashes or anything like that have yet been reported, as you know, from the rollout on Monday. But whānau might have had some of those small ones, like feeling a bit tired, bit of a headache, bit of a sore tummy. For our little ones, when I took my boy, one of the big ones that she said to really look out for was being a little bit nauseous. But we haven't had any massive reports of that yet.
And just talking about whānau, what has been the reaction like from our whānau across the Waikato DHB population? Has the reaction been positive? Was the numbers as to be expected when the program started on Monday?
Yeah, I think so. We know that whānau are going to be cautious, especially within whānau Māori. We saw that with the vaccinations last year with our adults and our 12 to 15-year-olds too. People were cautious, which is good. I encourage our whānau to ask questions. I encourage our whānau to be cautious around anything like this. And to seek out the right information, because if we're looking for information when it comes to things like COVID and vaccines, then that same critical thinking and analytical thinking, I suppose, can go across to a lot of our other health conditions that whānau might have. I think the numbers have been as expected. And I think we'll start to see those numbers probably rise a little bit more over the next few weeks, and definitely when kura starts to open as well.
Indeed. Denise, if I can come to you and just come back to the paediatric dose for tamariki. Can you just talk a little bit more about the paediatric dose? And I guess to clarify that this is one of a series of vaccination doses. So it's something very similar to what adults are currently receiving now. So it's not just a one-off administration dose of Pfizer for tamariki?
Oh, kia ora whānau. No, it's not like a one-stop shop like what it would be progressive like when we take our tamariki to get their childhood vaccinations. So these are their MMR vaccinations, and how we take our little ones when they're peepee to go and get to phase out those vaccines. That's similar to what how Pfizer will go with our 5 to 11-year-olds as well. So there will be some spacing time, and when you go into your appointment, with your tamariki, your nurse will give a little bit of that explanation to you around or your vaccinator will give that information to you around this is what the spacing time looks like for these vaccinations, and we'll give recommendations around when to come back and when to follow up with appointments. So it will be spaced out.
Mm. And you just mentioned something there earlier on, Denise, about the MMR and our childhood kind of immunisation program. Will this just form part of that series of immunisations that we get as children, as opposed to a standalone campaign?
At this stage, we're seeing what it looks like. We need to take so many different things into consideration before making that decision. So at the moment, we're just saying I'm hoping that we will get a little bit more information around what that will look like in terms of national immunisations moving forward.
And coming to you, Kylie, and in particular within the Waikato DHB population, how is the rollout of our vaccination for tamariki progressing since it started on Monday?
I think it's going all right. Our Māori providers are all ready. They've all had their deliveries from last week. So they were all ready to go from last year. They knew that we were getting ready to roll out around the 17th of January. So they've been really, really proactive. And I mean, for our whānau, they know our whānau. So if we look at the National Immunisation Program this year, our Māori providers are going to lead that out again, from what I can see. But with the support of our DHB, we're really lucky in Waikato, I think, because our DHB and our Māori providers and our Pacific providers work really, really closely together. So I think we're going to see good things. I think we're going to see a lot of things that are appropriate to our whānau and are well thought out by our whānau. But whānau, if you're looking for your vaccine, definitely book into your local Māori providers where they're all across. Go into Book My Vaccine, go into Healthline. But if you're worried, definitely check with your GPs as well. They're all vaccinating at the moment too. But in terms of population numbers, I think we're going as expected, as I said before. And yeah, we'll see this probably roll out a little bit further and see our numbers go up in the next couple of weeks, I would say, being the first week, eh?
And I guess, is it too soon, Kylie, to see where our numbers are sitting at for our Māori numbers in terms of tamariki getting vaccinated?
I think so. We've still got a lot of whānau on holiday. So we've got some of our whānau are here on Waikato, and some of them have actually gone to the beach, because as we know, here in Hamilton at least, all we've got is the awa. And she's a dangerous awa, so we don't see many people swimming, and everyone's over at the beaches and things like that, which is another reason why we might not see our numbers go up till next week, when everyone starts to come back, getting ready to go to kura, and a lot of our information will be available within our kura as well.
Ka pai. Denise, I know that this week there's been a few discussions around the water cooler, in particular around the use of the word vaccination versus immunisation for our tamariki. What is the correct, I guess, terminology to use in this instance?
Immunisation is probably the best one to use. It's a mana enhancing kupu. It enhances and brings in a different perspective of oranga into this. So vaccination is kind of it's a transition into immunisation. Immunisation is, building that immunity, building that having the building blocks in your tinana to be able to progress in this and etene also immunisation whānau.
Indeed. And if we just talk about whānau, because we all know that we all come from very big families, and I guess it must be difficult for you both, being in the positions that you hold. And I'll probably start with you, Denise. Have you had any, I guess, negative feedback, negative reaction from within your whānau around the tamariki immunisation vaccinations?
Yeah, I have actually. I've had quite a few of my whānau come and say to me, you know, what's happening, you know, getting vaccinated is the wrong thing. And a lot of it is that misinformation that's all over social media that's, you know, giving out the wrong information, you know, the wrong kind of evidence-based places. And I kind of just want to take a step back and say, if you are the type of person who wants to see all the evidence around COVID-19 and the vaccine for children, WHO, the World Health Organization, is a really good website to go on to have a look at those researchers. That research is up. Also, MedSafe is another really, really good website. If you want to have a look at the vaccination kind of process and have a look at some maybe you might want to have a little bit of a look at what may happen behind the scenes in terms of your vaccinator workforce or those who are going to be vaccinating you. The Immunisation Advisory Centre has some really cool bits and pieces on there too around Pfizer and the vaccine and vaccinating our tamariki. Also too, Karawhiua is another really, really good website that's whānau specific. So I mainly lead my whānau across there. I have had whānau who were kind of sitting on the fence in terms of getting their vaccination, and a lot of it was they didn't know what was in the vaccine. So I've actually had one-on-one time with my whānau, one-on-one time with one of my sisters was really, really hesitant around getting the vaccine, and it wasn't about what was in the vaccine or anything like that. It was around, because there was so much hesitancy around the vaccine with her peers, she didn't want to disclose that she had gotten the vaccine because she knew the kind of negative connotation that she was getting after that. But when she got the vaccine, she actually felt a lot of relief because that was one less thing she had to worry about. And I think looking at things like that, like, okay, cool, I have a lower chance of getting long COVID because I've been vaccinated twice, you know, all those sorts of whakaaro.
And I guess for you, Kylie, it's probably no different. You've probably had similar experiences in your backyard with, you know, whānau coming to you and probably ringing you at all times of the day and night in regards to their concerns. So what has been some of the reactions from your immediate whānau?
Yeah. For people that have been around me, some of it's been around consent. So whānau have been really worried that if we decide to do, or, you know, if their kura decides to host vaccinations on site, a lot of whānau have been really scared that their tamariki will be vaccinated without their consent. And so I've been able to put those fears to rest, to know that anyone, you know, 5 to 11-year-olds can't be vaccinated without parental consent, even if it was on the kura ground. So that's been a really big one for me to be able to support whānau through. Negative, when we talk about negative reactions, I think it's just more fears, and those fears need to be validated, and I'm okay with that. But most of it's been around consent and being able to awhi whānau through that space. That's the big one. Yeah.
Now, Kylie, Denise mentioned a number of rather informative platforms in which whānau can go to get more information about COVID and vaccination and immunisation. Within your space at the Waikato DHB, you know, we hear that there's still a lot of misinformation, or there's not enough information coming through to our whānau. Is that still, or is it an area of concern for the Waikato DHB? And, you know, is it signs that maybe more needs to be done in that space?
Oh, absolutely. There's still a lot of information that probably isn't in line with what I would be sharing with whānau. So one of the platforms that I push a lot of our whānau to is actually Whakakaupapa Uruta. They're a group of Māori doctors who are not, I suppose, a crown entity. They are an independent group, and they're all Māori. They're an amazing group of doctors on there. And actually on their website, there's actually a list of who the doctors are. So even though they've got a whole lot of really non-biased information on there, really good links into those spaces, They've actually got their contact details on there as well if you wanted to send them an email or pārtai to them, and they're so receptive. So a lot of our whānau are looking for non-biased information, and sometimes they don't see the Crown websites as non-biased. And so I push a lot of whānau over to the Whakakaupapa Uruta websites and protect our whakapapa Facebook pages as well.
And I guess if I kind of keep on that same train of thought, and I come to you, Denise, because we know that you work in a very technical area. Do you find that maybe the language that we're using to explain certain things may be too heavy for our whānau in terms of getting the information across?
Definitely. You know, I do. I find that some of the wording is really, really technical, and Kylie's absolutely right. Te Rōpū Kaupapa Uruta is a really good website for our whānau to get information that's really pinpointed in a way that our whānau can understand. I think that that's one thing looking back at the year in which we can look at some of our information as simplifying it, because you're right, like if you're a really technical person and you love those kupu and you want to learn more about those kupu, those sites are the perfect sites for you. Yeah, so but if you're a person who wants to, you know, get to the ngako o te kōrero, hei a te kaupapa uruta tērā.
Indeed. Now, we do have some questions coming in from whānau, and we know that there is a lot of whānau out there who are adamant that they will not get their tamariki vaccinated. What would be your kōrero to our whānau who are deciding not to get their tamariki vaccinated, and why is it that you think that our whānau are feeling this way? And if I probably start with Denise and then come to you, Kylie.
First of all, yeah, hei a koe te mana, you know, at the end of the day, this is your choice, and we're not here to push you to get vaccinated or your whānau to get vaccinated. So I want to make that very, very clear. But we are here to be vessels of information, and I guess if just some things to think about is if you don't, you know, if you're on the fence about getting your tamariki vaccinated, if you're just not quite sure, have a kōrero to somebody you maybe trust who you know whose tamariki have gotten the vaccine, and find out their whys, because your whys might be different to theirs. And that, you know, that's around us being whānau and having that whakawhanaungatanga and that kōrero around the whys to vaccinate or around someone else's whys, because it might give a different perspective. And if even after that you refuse to get vaccinated, hei a koe te mana, but just maybe come up with a little bit of a safety plan for your whānau, because as we know, whānau, it's not a matter of when or if, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when at the moment.
And what's your thoughts, Kylie, especially for our whānau who are deciding not to vaccinate their tamariki?
I have similar thoughts to Denise. I think I encourage everyone to get vaccinated as a measure of protection. If it is something that you can't do due to medical concerns or anything like that, or you choose not to do at this point, then I really encourage you to look at how you keep yourself safe within your whare and within your home. For us, it was a bit of a wānanga. I made sure to wānanga with my household so that we all knew that every decision that we make, not just around COVID, but about everything, actually impacts on all of us. And what does my decision around this vaccination mean for the rest of my whānau? So I'm really privileged, and I live in a 3-generation home. So my parents, myself, my tāne, and my babies all live in here. So I had to look at what does that look like for my whakapapa and my uri, and my tūpuna as well. And what kind of tūpuna am I being later on? So it is everyone's choice. I do encourage vaccination as a measure of protection against COVID-19. But as I said, if it's something you choose not to do, then please look at things like mask wearing, distancing? What does it look like if COVID enters your whare? How are you guys going to keep each other safe? Not just yourself, but actually keep each other safe within that space. Because it is a fearful thing to make decisions for our tamariki. We make decisions for ourselves, and we know that our tamariki should be part of these wānanga, should be part of these decision making. But the age of these tamariki, the decisions should not be left up to them solely. For example, my 13-year-old was able to make the decision. Would I do that with my 6-year-old? I don't think that's fair to put that pressure onto him as a 6-year-old of what that means for his parents and his kaumātua and kuia in the whare too.
And thank you for sharing that too, Kylie. And we'll probably come back to that a little bit later on about your personal experiences with the immunisation of your tamariki. But if I come to you, Denise, so today we heard the Prime Minister talk about Omicron, and we've got cases in Tāmaki Makaurau and a suspected case in Palmerston also. Omicron is certainly within the communities now. So with that, how worried should we be with this Omicron variant? And, is this more of a reason for our tamariki now to get vaccinated?
In my opinion, I think the fact that COVID's here and that it's strong and prevalent should be a reason to look at getting our tamariki vaccinated, whether it's a Delta variant, whether it's an Omicron variant. We need to look at measures and ways to keep our tamariki safe, and vaccination, looking at vaccinations as a pathway to doing that. Omicron is a little bit of a game changer, but at the moment, I think what we need to do is we've been through multiple lockdowns, and we know what to do in those situations. And I would encourage whānau to have a plan ready just in case, just in case of a lockdown. And have those wānanga with your whānau around, if we were to go into COVID tomorrow, what would this look like for us as a whānau? And exactly what Kylie said pretty much. What does this look like for us as a whānau? What would we need in this situation? And just looking kind of at that moving forward same thing where we put your mask on, mawana tō haumaru, scanning everywhere. You use your COVID tracking app so you know where you've been in. We've kind of gotten into a routine of that in Aotearoa, and just keep to those routines, because those will be the routines that keep us safe.
And I guess talking about those routines, Kylie, within the Waikato DHB, we knew that Omicron was going to come into our communities. How prepared is the Waikato DHB for an outbreak of Omicron within our communities?
I think we're as prepared as we can be with what we do know. As we saw, with the Delta variant as well, we went through, it landed in Aotearoa last February, March, and then we had the Delta one that landed a lot later. So the more we learn about the virus, the more we can prepare. I think we are as prepared as we can be. And I don't just think about Waikato, I look across our entire country in terms of our hospitals and things like that. I know there's lots of planning happening, lots of iwi involvement, which is amazing to see. The more of our iwi whānau, hapu and marae that actually get into planning, the more prepared we can be, because we can't just rely on the DHB. Us as whānau need to look at how are we prepared within our own whare. So seeing the planning happening across our Crown agencies and our iwi agencies is really heartening. That will determine how prepared we are, to be fair.
And still talking about Omicron, and if I come back to you, Denise, because we spoke earlier on this evening about the ingredients or the makeup of Pfizer. So how different is the Omicron variant from the Delta variant, and I guess the original COVID variant?
So with this vaccine, it protects you against COVID, and as we know from previous webinars, it does have a good protection against Delta. we're still looking at its, we're still investigating what it looks like with Delta at the moment, but we're pretty sure that this vaccine has really, really good immunity against this particular variant coming on. But as we know, and as Kylie had described before, Omicron is a little bit different. So we're still looking at kind of what that looks like. But what we do know is that the Pfizer vaccine does offer the better protection.
Mm-hmm. Very good. If I come to you now, Kylie, and we touched on this a little bit earlier on also in the evening around your personal experiences about immunisation of your tamariki, because you have tamariki of your own. So can you take us back to, I guess, your thoughts around that, the reasons why you decided to have your tamariki immunised, and I guess what was it like for you to be on the other side as a parent? To go through that immunisation process with your tamariki?
For me, it was a little bit confronting because, here I am working in the COVID response space, vaccine space and things like that. And now all of a sudden I've got to have that conversation with my 6-year-old. It was really good as a whānau because, for us at our marae, we have those urupa with the mass graves and things like that. So that's what pushed me to do the mahi I'm doing. But now I had to make a decision around a vaccine that I didn't know very much about up until a few months ago. So we had wānanga, I talked to my kids around it. What did they think? What did they know? And for my baby, he remembers his 4-year-old vaccination. So he remembered the pain. And then we started talking about COVID and I said to him, do you want it? And he said, yeah. And I said, why? And he goes, so I don't get COVID. So we had to have that kōrero and be really honest with him and say, well, you could still get COVID, baby. However, you won't get as sick as you would if you didn't have your vaccine. So he's like, oh, okay, that's all right. And it was actually that easy, having that kōrero with him, treating him as his own person and asking what his questions were. And then I had to go and find it. So I went on to whakakaupapa uruta to find some of that information myself from a kaupapa Māori perspective, I suppose. I talked to GPs, I talked to my cousins, I talked to my kaumātua, I talked to my uncles. It wasn't a decision that I made by myself because I'm really privileged to be part of a village, So I talked to all my cousins around it, my siblings, my mum, my dad, and that's how we made that decision. It wasn't a decision just for me to make or just for Manuela. We all made it kind of together. And his experience with the GP clinic was awesome. It was really, really cool.
And I guess the situation wouldn't be too different for you, Denise. I mean, you come from a big village as well, and you've got lots of tamariki around you. Are you able to share with us just maybe some of your personal experiences around tamariki, nieces, nephews that are in the situation of getting the immunisation?
So I have 2 tamariki that one, my oldest son has just turned 5. So we're having really, really interesting kōrero at the moment around the vaccine. And as a baby, I made the choice to have my son vaccinated with MMR. I personally have a personal experience where I had rubella as a child, and I didn't want my son to go through that, and I didn't want to go through what my mum had to go through, going through not vaccinating me or vaccinating too late. So when it came to my babies, we've always made sure that they're vaccinated. That's something that we've kind of always put in place. Now, when it comes to COVID, because my son's been so well educated around COVID, unfortunately, he has no other choice when every conversation that comes through the telephone off his mama's wire is COVID. He's learned a lot about COVID, and he has a really good comprehension for at that time he was 4 years old around what COVID is, how it's mate uruta at kohanga reo. They taught them waiata around washing their hands, wearing their haumaru. So he's got a Spider-Man haumaru, and every time we go into the shop, he's gotten used to those routines of me scanning in. So having that kōrero around vaccination with him is kind of a normal conversation for us, because he's had to have work conversations with mummy, and mummy has had to mummy it down, so that, you know, if I can get it through to him as a 5-year-old, I'm pretty sure I can pitch to almost anybody around where we're going to. But my son is the same as Kylie's son. He still remembers the momoi on his waiwai from that. So that's his fear at the moment. And that's mainly his fear is the momoi at the moment. And we're still in, I'm gonna be honest, Whānau, we're still in ongoing conversations around it. I've almost got him there. I've almost got him, you know, come on my boy, let's go. He wants to know if there's gonna be McDonald's afterwards. So I think that's gonna be the incentive.
No, so it's certainly a nice incentive. Well, thank you both for sharing your personal experiences, and I do hope that serves as an opportunity for whānau out there who are probably sitting on the fence, and to give them just a little bit of that confidence to take that step forward to get their tamariki immunised. Well, we've actually spoken quite a lot this evening, and we've shared a lot of kōrero, but we do have some questions coming in. And I understand that we've got a question coming in from Facebook at the moment, and it's from Māori, and she says that some whānau don't like going to hospital due to many reasons to ask for advice around vaccinating their tamariki. So how do we best support or create these services for whānau who can't access internet, etc., etc., etc.? And I think I'll probably just start with you, Kylie, with Waikato DHB, and then I'll come to you, Denise. But Kylie, what's your thoughts on that from Māori?
Oh, completely agree. We know that across our whānau that, you know, for our whānau, we don't like going to hospital. It doesn't reflect us quite often. And usually we go into hospital because it's actually a pretty bad, something's happened within our whānau, an unfortunate circumstance. So we don't associate good news with hospitals, I guess. What I would say is we have our Māori providers that are out in the community that are really keen to have one-on-one sessions. They're really keen to run education sessions. We've also got your local GPs, your local general practice, who are prepared to have these conversations. Pharmacies are able to have these conversations. I would even go so far as to talk to some of our whānau order providers as well. They've had a lot to do with the COVID response and know where to get really good information that's probably tailored to you, your situation, and your locality as well. Yeah.
Denise, have you got anything to add there for Māori and her comments?
Cole, I think Kylie's pretty much said it all. One thing that I do know from an IMAC perspective that we do with whānau is that we have a program called the Immunisation Support Worker available, and part of that kōrero we do, and part of that education that we do within that is we actually teach our own whānau, you know, how to not so much how to have this conversation, because as an organisation we know that our whānau out there who are taking our education courses, they know the community better than we do. They know the community that they serve better than we do. So as a koha from us, and part of our mahi and part of our role and responsibility is that we can give whānau that information in a way that's pitched and tailored to Māori. So this is Māori dedicated, pitched and tailored to Māori, so that our whānau can have their own those conversations with whānau, and if they need, and if there's something big that comes out of it, like really, really technical stuff, we're always here to tautoko as well. So that's another kaupapa that's provided as well.
Ka pai. Thank you for your responses there, and thank you also to Māori for sharing your comments this evening. Ka pai. Now, before we say goodnight, let's just very quickly take a look at where the pop-up testing and vaccination centres are for our whānau tomorrow, Friday. Our pop-up testing centres for tomorrow, Friday, they'll be set up at the Otorohanga Referee Club in Otorohanga, opening at 10 a.m. and they'll be there till midday. They'll also be at the Te Oro o Ngātai Centennial Park site in Te Kuiti. They're open from 10 a.m. through to 4 p.m. and also at the Miriama Club in Taumaranui from 9 a.m. through to 2 p.m. Now, if you need to go get a vaccination, an immunisation or booster dose, you can head to the pop-up vaccination sites which are running across the Nehenehenui. Whānau can go to the Te Aomatu Vaccination Centre, which is the former Bunnings site, from 9 a.m. through to 4 p.m. and also the Countdown Otorohanga car park from 10 a.m. Through to 3 p.m. So plenty of opportunities to go get tested and to get your vaccinations and immunisations. Ka pai. Denise, if we come to you, what would be your closing remarks, especially for those who are unvaccinated and are sitting on the fence, and in particular now that our tamariki immunisations have started this coming, the Monday just gone, and also now that we've got Omicron within the community. So what would be your closing remarks to our whānau out there?
Kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawanui whānau. So be strong, be diligent, and be courageous. We have our routines that we know how to do, like our scanning, our hand sanitizer, our haumaru. We already know that we've got those in place. So keep up doing the good mahi that you're already doing in those daily routines. I guess I would just like to say that this vaccine is a really good vaccine for our tamariki, and that it is, that it is safe. I do want to say that it is a safe vaccine for our whānau, and just in my closing, kia kaha whānau.
Ka pai. And to you, Kylie, your final messages or words of encouragement for those who remain hesitant in getting vaccinated and taking tamariki to get their immunisation. What words do you have for our whānau there?
Just to seek out that information across te Nehenehenui. We have Te Whare Taumarutanga and Taumarunui Kōkiri Trust. We have our whānau water centre in Te Kuiti. We have MFM in Te Kuiti, which is an amazing place for information to whānau. We have the Trust Board. There's got heaps of kaimahi ready to help. Our whānau down at Centennial Park, kia ora whānau, all our kaimanake that are working across Maniapoto. There is so many people in there who are really ready to help. Dr. John out in Kawhia, Te Aomatu. I just really encourage everyone to seek out the information you need to make a decision that works well for your whānau. And by feeding into our iwi, by feeding into the PAC Trust, all these questions to MFM, it actually helps Denise and I within our mahi, because these people hold us to account. They bring your questions into us, and that helps us to inform and hopefully disrupt system and change it to make it work for us. So seek out that information, ask the questions. If you need, reach out to Denise and I. We get whānau reach out all the time. That's why we're in the spaces around. I just encourage you to find the information you need to protect the whānau the way you know best.
Ka pai tēnā koe. Certainly some very important words of advice and encouragement there. Kylie Bryan from the Waikato DHB and Denise Tahuri from the Immunisation Advisory Centre. Thank you both for your time this evening, sharing your personal experiences, your expert advice and your insightful opinions, and also breaking it down for all of our whānau, and also most appreciative of the important work that you both continue to do on the front line in protecting our tamariki, our whānau. Denise, Kylie, e mea ana ki a kōrua.
Me koe hoki.
Well, Etiwi, that wraps up our kōrero for tonight. We hope that the information shared with you this evening allows you to take a more confident step closer to protecting yourself, your loved ones, and of course your tamariki. Remember that MFM will keep you up to date with any breaking news and latest developments across our various platforms, and we will be back soon with another live Q&A here on Te Puna Kōrero or Te Nehenehenui. Thank you for joining us. Look after one another. Stay safe. Take care. Ki te kotahi te waihoe. Kaura te iwi. Pō Mārie.